Welcome, friends. Today's conversation is a conversation, and we are talking with Anna Marie Kinney. And Anna Marie has a website as well. If you guys want to pop into it, it's Anna with Intention. And we are here today to kind of launch her podcast around music by design. It has been interesting to see how this theme of music, integrating it with human design, has been popping up. And I can't wait to have this conversation with you, Anna, and just play in this realm. So I would love for you to introduce yourself to the audience. And yeah, we'll just have an open, fun conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Leann. I have been looking forward to this for a little while. And play we will as
Awesome.
MGs. That is my motivation for most things. If it's not fun, I'm not interested.
Yes. Yes.
So, to let your folks know, I am a 5/1 emotional manifesting generator, left ankle cross of industry, single definition. So, I'm really fast and also take a long time with certain things. Um, yeah, so I have been a musician and singer for most of my life.
Mm.
And since I was in third grade, started playing the viola in orchestra, was took piano lessons when I was in middle school. And then as I got to be a teen, I taught myself guitar, and it's just always been a through line. My parents, they weren't incredibly musical. Like, we didn't grow up, they weren't working musicians or anything. My dad would play a little guitar, but music was always very important. And I think my dad was the one that really brought the music into our home. I remember sitting in front of our record player, and I would go through all their records. And my favorite ones I would pull out would always be the Beatles, Sgt.
Mm.
Pepper's album was hands down my favorite as a little girl. I would listen to that album over and over and over. I would just sit there with the headphones on, just like this. And yeah, and I would just listen. And there was all kinds of stuff in there, a lot of like stuff. Some of the stuff was my mom, some of the like
Mm.
pop hits, like Cyndi Lauper. And she was also a little bit more into the more folky people like Joni Mitchell and Joan Baez and artists like that. My dad also had, I remember a Chick Corea album, and actually a couple of those, Chick Corea, a few others. So I remember just being infatuated with music as a little girl. And yeah, and then once I got a little bit older, got into college, I kind of dropped the orchestral music, and I would just pick up if I was at a party and see a guitar, I'd pick it up and play like 3 or 4 songs that I knew, and people would be like, "Oh wow, you can play guitar, cool." And yeah, and then there was a number of years in my 20s where I didn't really play music. I listened to a lot. I became really obsessed. I would get obsessed with like one artist and listen to all of their work and then move on to the next one. And then I lived out in California. I drove around a lot, so I just listened to a lot of music doing that. And then yeah, moved back to the East Coast it was like 2011 or so. And I met a fellow who played guitar and sang, and he came over to my house and sang a song and a couple songs. And I was like, wow, you're really good. This is really cool. And he sang a few that I knew, and I was able to naturally pick up the harmonies. And I attribute some of that to
Mm.
listening to the Beatles so much.
Mm.
I had this natural ear for the harmonies. And as I've looked into my chart, I also look at that gate 50. I think I have defined like 3 times.
Yes.
And I feel that one is linked a lot to that idea of harmony. Um, and yeah, I've never been really, I love to try to sing lead, but it's not my strong suit. I can sing harmonies with anybody. And so I started singing harmonies with him, and he said, "Hey, if you want to, sing music with me, you can, but the rule is you got to also play an instrument." So I said, "Okay." So I went back and got my viola from my mom's house and started playing it, but my bow control was shot. And if you don't have good bow control, you cannot make an orchestral instrument sound good. So I started like plucking it and playing it like this. And
Mm.
he looked at me and said, he's like, why don't you just go get a mandolin? You're playing that thing like it's a mandolin. I said, okay. So I got a mandolin, and now that's the instrument that I really play
Mm.
most. I played music with him for about 7 years, and then my partner and I, we now have a folk duo. He plays guitar and sings lead. I play mandolin and sing harmonies. Very much like if you ever heard of the band Watch House, they used to be
No.
called Mandolin Orange. We love their music, and we've just been getting into a lot of like folk, country, folk kind of Americana music. So
Love it.
that's my musical
Wow.
history.
That's so fun.
Yeah. And then human design came to me 4.5 years ago after having a very classic 5-line experience,
Mm.
literally getting burned at the stake. Well, not literally, but I was unceremoniously thrown out of a certification program that I was in
Yeah.
and I was blamed for something that I never did, and couldn't explain it away. And I had the wherewithal at that point, which was very early on in my spiritual journey. I had enough wherewithal to just walk away and not try to get them to understand me, which was like a common theme in my life, was trying to make people understand how they had perceived me wrong.
Right.
And a friend of mine who is also big into music, she, unbeknownst to me, was a human design reader, and she approached me after this big blowout happened, and lots of people saw it happen, and people were very confused as to what was going on, just as much as I was. And she reached out to me after. She's like, hey, have you ever heard of human design? If not, I think it's something that can really help you. Can we talk? And I said, sure. And she came over. It was my birthday week. She came over and gave me a reading for my birthday, and we talked for 3 hours in my backyard. And the three most pivotal things that blew me away and validated me and gave me so much understanding was understanding the fifth line, how that was huge in understanding and explaining so much of my life.
Huge.
Being a manifesting generator and forgiving myself for not being able to stick with something for very long. I was proud that I had been in that band for 7 years. That was the longest I'd ever done anything.
Mm.
Before that, it had been college. I went to college for 4 years, and that was the longest I'd ever done anything, any one thing for that long, without quitting and switching. But I did switch my major 4 times. So, and also learning about the emotional wave, the emotional authority was also huge. And then I've just been reconciling the both and the
Mm.
cognitive dissonance of how to
Yeah.
hold all these very um contradictory themes. And I'm
Yeah.
still like, moving through them. But 4.5 years in of really, really going at it, and really learning and then leaning in and practicing and experimenting and tracking, and my one line really shining through. I am my own scientist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel every day I get closer and closer to being in this really beautiful state of flow and allowing things to kind of pass through me. I still get triggered, I still get all these things, but I don't act from those places anymore. And life is so much better.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
don't have those big explosive 5-line experiences as much anymore, but I've found that as I've been more in alignment, it feels like I'm cleaning that projection field and smoothing out the ripples with my strategy and authority, and just really leaning into patience and time. And that projection field becomes just cleaner, so I can see others and they can see me just so much clearer. And it results in less of those upsets and more like better invitations.
Mm-hmm.
I recently got
Yeah.
invited to lead a group of homeschool students in a little choir project that they want to start. So
Mm.
I sat with it for a month, before I reached back
Yes.
out and said, this sounds cool. I still need more information. And then it's been another month and I'm like, okay, I think I want to try this. I think this could be really cool.
Yeah.
And so even just leaning into that in that moment. And, you know, it was the thing when I first heard about it, I was like, ooh, that sounds really cool. And then my schedule opened up for the day that they wanted it for. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I sat with it a little bit longer, and then it came up again 2 weeks later. And I was like, okay. And I listened to what my body said. I was like, that sounds really cool, but it was still like, need more info,
Yeah.
and just kept writing it. And it hasn't started yet. We're starting in the new year, but it's one of those things that you still don't know for sure until you really get into it and try it. But um, I just lean into my design all the time, and I'm like, I can see myself doing it with inner vision as my cognition.
Mhm.
I lean into that all the time. Like if I can't see it happening in my mind's eye, if I can't see myself there with those people and I'm just playing it out, not trying to set expectations of what I think it's going to
Yes.
look like,
Yeah.
but really just what does it feel like when I see it happening? You know, and leaning into the emotions of it too. Does it feel good? I feel excited. And I also feel a little terrified and nervous
Good.
because it's new, right? But
Yeah.
it's that terrifying that comes with expansion, potential expansion and new opportunities and all that. So
Yeah.
I think I've worn out my 2034 for now.
I'm just gonna share your chart just so everybody can see it on the screen for a minute. Just so that they can get a visual as you're talking and speaking. And you know, truly what I see, it's so interesting because so much of what you're talking about, so the nodes, the 12 and the 11 here in your nodes, talking about harmonies and talking about music, and that being such a big part of your environment as a child. That is so interesting because the
Mm,
nodes are so much a part of our environment, right? Who we bump
mhm,
into, what's around us, and to be able to recognize that, you know, music was designed to be a part of your trajectory.
mhm.
So beautiful, so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
And
and
go ahead.
I just would like to interject. I'm staring at my moon, my 13 gate too, and I feel
Mm,
like that's a huge piece too. Is one of the things I like to ask people is, you know, anthropologists have found that there's like four main reasons why we have evolved to make music as humans. One of them being the most like oldest archetypal reason is like as a mating call to like draw in, you know, the potential mate like a bird would, or any animal that makes a kind of a call. Um, Another one is for community and belonging, right? Bringing people together. Another reason we make music is to tell stories for
mm,
history, for like an oral history. Before we wrote things down,
yeah.
a lot of times the bards, the musicians of the community were the ones that told the history through their songs. And the fourth reason being for emotional creative expression, which everyone I ask says that's their number one reason why they create music or why they like music. But I agree, and as an emotionally defined person, that's a huge piece of it, but I really love the stories. And I'm a lyrics person. I'm a lyrics person. I love to listen to the words, and I haven't written many songs myself. I've written about five or six. um it's not my forte, but what the ones I have written, they specifically tell like a very specific story, whereas like there
Mm,
are other, you know, lyricists who are much more poetic and have much more, they're much more emotionally driven in the way they write. And I do like a lot of those artists too, but sometimes I have a harder time connecting to like what they're talking about when they use
mm,
really abstract terms. I think I have a lot of logical circuitry in me too. So like it, I need the more straightforward to the point. but I just love listening to the stories that come through the music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks
Love
for letting me
it.
interject there.
Of course. Love it. Yeah. Like it's such a big part of who and what you are. And then you talked about gate 50, right? And you've got that 4 times, your Pluto and your Saturns. And I also have gate 50 in my design. So I understand it so deeply. It's like once that aspect of our purpose really presents itself to us, it's like you and I are designed in a way that we are here to educate, to move into that, to go so deeply into that cauldron of that 50 and really get to understand all of the information that's in there and look at the value system that we're bringing to our tribe so that everybody wins in the interaction. And of course, left angle cross of industry and the right angle cross of contagion. And that's kind of the trajectory of this, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like we have no other choice. When they
Yeah.
talk about choicelessness, it's we have no other choice. We have to lean in.
Yeah. I mean, the thought of working in like a career
Yeah.
job for my entire life
Yeah.
just sounds like death to me.
Yep.
And I've actually never been in corporate. That's one of the things that I hear a lot in the coaching spaces is, leave your corporate job and make a coaching career. And I'm like, I never had a corporate job. And there's parts of that I kind of wish I had. So I had gotten some of the like free personal development that they,
Mm-hmm.
give you and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
also I knew from a very young age, I am not cut out to work for a giant thing. I've worked a retail job once for a regional corporate chain, but I loved it because the guy who owned the place was a deadhead. So all of our it was called Eastern Mountain Sports for anybody on the East Coast here in the US. And we had t-shirts with parody stuff on it all the time. It was great. It was a cool company to work for. But other than that, I mean, I've been working for myself since 2013.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of things
Right.
and have been my whole life. I have quite a mixture of things. So with my Anna with Intention, I do human design readings and um, quantum healing, quantum alignment, soul alignment sessions, and things like that. And I'm starting this podcast, and I'm also a
Yes.
folk musician, and I also started a flower farm this year, and I run a high-end residential house cleaning business. I do that 2 or 3 days out of the week. So that's really like my bread and butter that funds all of my other extracurricular activities. And I'm in the process of transitioning out of that because my body can't really handle the physical work of it anymore. But it's also like I use up all of my energy every day when I work that stuff, when I work those days. And but I've managed to like just balance all these different things in my schedule to where I'm able to go through all these different creative outlets in many, many different ways and still feed myself and pay the rent and feel very fulfilled, very fulfilled in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So before the podcast, we were kind of chatting about the fifth line. So I would love for you to just talk about the fifth line because it seems to be a bone of contention for fifth lines. I see it as an absolute gift because for someone who doesn't have the fifth line in my profile, I see the fifth line as a gift to those who have it. So I would love for you to just play with that and share, like, what is your experience of that fifth line and that practicality blended in with the one and that investigator, foundation, source looker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of different little strands flowing in. The first memory that pops up for me is long before I had any inkling of human design or even really astrology. When I was a senior in high school, did you ever get a senior superlative? Like most likely to become president or most likely to be a millionaire, like any
I
of
don't
those things.
remember. I don't remember. If I did, I don't
I
remember.
remember mine because it surprised the heck out of me. I
Mm.
had no idea like why. So I was always a bit more reserved when I was younger. And then when I finally got to leave home and go to college was when I feel like I really, really started to become my own person. And I was a bit more shy, timid. I didn't speak out a lot. And when we got the superlatives in, I was voted most likely to save the world.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
Love
what?
it.
Me? Like, okay. I mean, at the time I was in a group of friends and we were the more eclectic, kind of weird kids that were into music and art and like politics, and we talked a lot about like I wrote my college entrance essay on sweatshops, the evils of sweatshops, right?
Yeah.
That sort of a thing. And I wound up getting my degree. I started out in college as a biochem major and quickly failed out of both of those things, and then switched into sociology and in international relations, politics. And that was where I wound up. I got my degree in international relations of the and third world systems of ideology and sociology of the third world. So I was very much into, I did want to save the world. And I didn't really realize it until I had gotten that superlative and then meandered my way through college. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And after 4 years of studying politics, I was like, oh, this is not how I'm going to save the world. No, thank you. I'm done with that. I'm going to go do stuff in the woods for the next couple of years. So I kind of ran around the country doing conservation work for a while. But
Mm.
the other piece that came in, as far as the fifth line being a gift, because I feel like you 5 lines talk all the time about how much it sucks. Like
Right.
that, I'm in a few groups on Facebook and it really, I can't go in there that often because I will wind up getting into arguments with people about like, doesn't have to be that way. And
Mm-mm.
I do understand because I've had those experiences, but this is how you gotta do your own stuff to get right with that field.
Yes.
And um the gift of it really is, it's a filter. It is this really beautiful filter where all you have to do is just check in with yourself and be like, okay, am I in love? Am I in integrity with myself in this situation right now? Am I in the right place with people who do value me? Or am I, reaching through all the shadows of my openness, trying to get love and approval?
Yeah.
And if I do that quick check, like, am I in love? Am I speaking from kindness? Am I in integrity? And this person is literally just coming out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, okay. My favorite phrase is thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
And 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 I just say that to myself. I might not say that to the person, but I'm just like, okay, bye. you know but I have found too, like, that it has been a struggle, and having been a performer on stage, I saw both sides of the 5 line projection, like, in one breath. I'd have one person over here claiming I'm an angel and a goddess and all of these things and I'm amazing, and then another person over here who's telling me like I'm the worst person in the world. And there were times where I'm standing on the stage too and feeling like almost removed from it all, and I was just watching this really wild play unfold in front of me a lot.
Yes.
um that too, like, not being on the stage as much anymore. Like, when I was playing with the other band I was in, we gigged a lot, especially in the summer times. And um being on the stage a lot, I just had a lot more of those projections. And now I'm not on the stage as much. I don't make myself as available. I treat my energy a bit more like I'm a precious diamond.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the
Mm-hmm.
best thing I heard, I was just going through videos on YouTube one time looking for stuff on the 5 line, just listening to other people's perspectives. And one woman's video, she used the word rarefy yourself, not hide, but just be really freaking selective. Treat yourself like you are a precious diamond and not just, not that quartz isn't great, but just like, a piece of polished quartz that are like so common and everyday. And like, you have to rarefy yourself to increase your value. And it almost feels skeezy because it's like using scarcity as a economic principle.
Right.
The more scarce something is, the higher the value of it is, right?
Yeah.
That's really the idea of it. And I started calling it mastering the art of the Irish goodbye. Just leaving when like
Yeah.
an hour before I think I want to leave, I leave. And
Yes.
I don't tell anybody what I'm doing, just go.
Yeah.
And even like show up an hour late, leave an hour early, basically. And that has improved my relationships tremendously
That's awesome.
because it feels like it feeds the air of mystery,
Yeah.
but in a positive way. And also the spaces we're entering and leaving are more aligned. So nobody's mad that we're leaving early and nobody's mad that we showed up late.
Right.
It's, yeah, I could
Yeah.
definitely talk about the 5 line for days.
And from someone who, I've got it in other aspects of my design. Like I feel as though it provides such a data source to understand what are people expecting and be able to like marketing gurus can use that all day long and use that terminology, right? Because people are going to speak through their openness, and they really provide so much data when they talk about their expectations.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the 5 line too for, oh, I just had it and it slipped away. Oh, sorry.
That's
I had it
okay.
on the tip of my tongue and it just open head notch and it just poofed right out again.
All good, all good. So share a little bit about like where this music podcast, where do you see this leaning into, this music by design? What is that really what does that look like? How do you play in people's charts and look at that music? Let's go there and play with that.
Okay. So I think one of the foundational pieces that I lean on from a logical standpoint, and again, logical in the way that we're talking about energy, right? And energetics and things like Reiki practice or just any sort of hands-on energy. So before I even heard of Reiki, I was already studying hands-on energy work, polarity therapy, things like that. I had stumbled upon a book by Ted Andrews and then another book about women are healers too, I think it's called. And got really fascinated by it and then got my Reiki certifications and the whole principle that energy is energy.
Mhm.
Space and time really aren't real.
Nope.
And we can send energy to anywhere, anyone across time and space and all dimensions at will, as long as they are open to receiving it. Like we can send it, they won't receive it if they don't want to, right?
Yep.
So whenever we create something, we're imprinting it with our energetics. So say I create a song, that song has its own birth date, right? It has its like transit energetics, but I I created it, right? Just like your parents have the conditioning imprint they put on you, but you also have your unique design, okay?
Yeah.
So if I create a song, it's going to carry the vibration of my design with it.
Mhm.
Whether it's carrying the not self themes or the aligned themes and expressions, that's really up to me at that time and what I was writing about, right? But even regardless of what the words are saying, even just creating, say, an instrumental piece, it's going to carry my energetic imprint. And as such, I have given this permission, once I put it out into the universe, you, Leann, now have permission to access my energy through the imprint I have put on this piece that I have created. And so like Reiki teaches you about this like there is no time and space. And so like you get to reach out with your energy. I'm reaching out with my energy to you at the moment that you listen to that piece of music, even if I wrote it 100 years ago, whether it was Mozart or the Beatles or whoever you're tapping into. When you listen to that music, you're tapping into their energetic blueprint. So that's like one of the foundational kind of ideas, right, that I'm leaning into here. Then there's this other piece where I've noticed the trend that sometimes when we're younger and we're individuating and we're coming into our own, we often find creative outlets like music and art and poetry and things like that to kind of like feel seen and feel understood. Because, right, when you're 13 years old, nobody understands you except for this piece of music, right? And often if we look at the chart of the musician that created that music and we look at yours, sometimes we'll find a lot of companionship energy there. And then as we grow older, if we've been on an evolutionary journey and we've been evolving and changing and seeking growth and expansion and moving into those edges, the music that we tend to gravitate towards, like now in our later years, often we'll find there may be a mix of some companionship, maybe more electromagnetic, maybe usually more electromagnetic, where they have the energy we've been seeking, sort of. And by listening to their music, we're getting that just like very brief. It's not the same as if we were in their aura, right? Like we're not necessarily accessing the full potency of that energy, but we're getting a spark. We're getting just that little like that little like push forward we might need, or that little bit of like turning on the light bulb, like sometimes when we feel stuck, or a lot of people when they work, they listen to music, often stuff that doesn't have lyrics, but listening to music just on a neurological level, it actually like unifies the two halves of the brain. You get the left and the right. So when we listen to music, no matter what the music is, it's unifying and allowing that transference of neurological signals to just happen so much faster and smoother already. And then when we're tapping into the energy of something that's actually doing something for us on this very subtle energy level, it makes it all that more juicy. So that's one of the things I look for in human design charts. So I'll compare an artist's chart with the chart of the person who loves that artist and see like, okay, why do we love this artist so much? And like, and then I also like to throw in a little astrocartography. So for anyone that's not familiar, astrocartography, we put in your birth information just like we would for a human design chart or a natal chart. And instead of a chart of like your energetics, we get a map of the planet, of the Earth, with all these planetary lines that crisscross over different places. So with astrocartography, you don't have to physically go to a place to tap into, say, your moon line or your sun line. Like sun line is like where you feel really seen, right? In that place, or you feel like the most like yourself in that place. Let's say your sun line runs through Omaha, Nebraska. You don't have to actually go to Omaha, but you can tap into the vibration of that line by listening to music that was made in Omaha, or by someone from Omaha, or by eating a steak from Omaha, or looking at a picture of Omaha. It's pretty flat. I don't know what look at, but or some whatever it is. Or if you went to Omaha and you have a little trinket, like a little keepsake, a souvenir, and you keep it in your desk, you can then tap into that energy of your sun line from Omaha without actually having to physically go there. So that's where I'll also look at an astrocartography chart, and I'll look at your chart as the person who likes the music, and I look at where was that artist born, because when they create that music, they're also imprinting it with the location of where they were born, because that's part of their energetic imprint. So it gets into this, we can get in the weeds with like charts on charts on charts, but it creates this really cool like just layers of validation. That makes it like, okay, this is there's actually something here, I think.
That's so fun. Awesome.
Do you want to look at yours?
I do. Let's play.
Okay. Okay, so I asked Leann before we started, when she was younger, like that angsty teenage years, what was one of her favorite artists that she listened to? And what popped right into her head was Cyndi Lauper. And we both heard Girls Just Want to Have Fun start playing in our heads, right? So I pulled up Leann's chart and I pulled up Cindy's chart, and I'm gonna actually share my screen here.
So funny, hey?
Okay. So Cyndi Lauper, she's a right angle cross of the vessel of love, which is beautiful. And looking at your two charts, so she has the will defined to the spleen, and then that's it. She's got that 1057 channel, and that's it. And looking at your chart, it's almost like hers almost plugs this little hole you have with the identity and the spleen there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. That's like a just right off the bat looking at that. What I love is that organically we talked about the 50 in this conversation. And what really gets me with these charts is when I look at your astrocartography. Cyndi Lauper was born in New York City, and your Uranus IC line goes right through New York City. And when you listen to, so then I like to cross pollinate the astrocartography lines with the human design gates. And with astrocartography, we're only looking at the personality side on the day you were born.
Yep.
So your, I'm sorry, that's Cindy's chart. Your personality Uranus, as well as your unconscious Uranus, your design Uranus, is gate 50. And gate 50 was that wonderful gate of value and tradition and education. And yeah, I would love to hear more about like what it is about Cyndi Lauper, why you were particularly like drawn to that music at the time. I mean, it was pop music, so it was like what was on the radio, right? But
Yeah.
what else would you say about that?
I think I liked her individuality and how she dressed, because I was very with that gate 50, very conservative, you know, and she was kind of like, I'm just gonna be here. I'm gonna have pink and I'm gonna have frills and I'm gonna have all this stuff, right? Now that just wasn't me. Interesting about New York City. I went there and I didn't have any connection to New York. It felt very felt too confining for me.
Mm.
So that's really interesting because, of course, Uranus, what is it? It's unusualness too, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay. Well, it's like, you know, it's an unusual place, but I'm a horizons girl. So being in the right was like, oh my gosh, it wasn't my place, but I had to go there and check that out. So that's
Yeah.
fun to even just look at that, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I would read into that more is that it's the Uranus IC. So the IC is like being in the environment of that place. So like that you physically went there is
Yeah.
cool to have had that experience where you
Yeah.
didn't like it.
Yeah.
Where so many people love New York City and rave
Right.
about it, but it's actually
Yeah.
like a little bit more unique to you that you're like, yeah, no, not so much. And maybe it was even
Yeah.
unexpected that you didn't like
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
and reinforcing what your values are. You're like, actually, yeah, I value wide open spaces. And it just
Yeah.
facilitated that grounding in for you.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Something I find usually, so this was music that you liked then. We
Yeah.
didn't really talk about what you like. You said right now you like more meditation music
Yeah.
and things like
So
that.
mostly that's what because you know, I like to create and sit at my computer and just create graphics and that kind of stuff, and like Canva and Word documents and all that kind of stuff, right? And right. So
Mhm.
I use a lot of the focus music and just being right present in that moment.
Yeah. And that you just named it, that you have your Neptune is in the focus gate. So as you're doing your spiritual work, you need to focus. And like I said, like that's what music does, is it unifies the hemispheres of the brain,
Yeah.
really. So
Yeah.
definitely makes a lot of sense for sure. I find myself, I don't explore a lot of new music. Actually, doing this podcast has opened me up to like listen to music I
Mm.
never would have listened to, and I still don't like it, but I'm listening to it as part of the research so I can talk to people about music they love, right? But I actually have done less musical exploration and I do a lot of podcast exploration. So I'm much more like I am just listening. I am absorbing. I am leaning
Yeah.
into my one line when I'm cleaning houses. You know, I clean
Yeah.
houses about 20 hours a week and I'm listening
Okay.
to 20 hours of podcasts a week.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I'm just passive brain sponge, just
Yes.
absorbing so much.
Yep.
But when we explore music, my partner and I, we tend to do more live music more than anything else. He actually is the musical explorer, and then he's like, I want to go see this artist, and I'm like, okay, I trust you. Like, he likes good music that I like, so we go. And we're actually going to show tomorrow night, but
Oh, good.
yeah, live music is one of those things too where I think I would prefer to take in live music 99% of the time over buying an album or listening on on a streaming platform or something like that. Um,
I think it's
it's
the experience, right? It's the experience.
yes,
And again, you know, I get it. Energy's everywhere. But when you are in aura, it just has this different reverberation in the cells, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. There's also another cool little through line that I haven't done any episodes yet on this, but it's
Okay.
coming. Where one of the questions I would ask is if you could only pick one of these two aspects of music, which would you choose? If you could only have one, really meaningful lyrics or a really great rhythm?
Probably the really great rhythm
Yeah,
for me. Yep.
yeah. Do you have the five line? You don't have the five or the 15. So that's one of my like theories that I'm like ready to poke at. Mainly I'm gonna start interviewing drummers.
Okay.
I went on this rabbit hole a year ago wondering about the gate five and how
Mm.
prevalent was the gate five with people who are obsessed with rhythm in music. So drummers or people who produce like solely rhythmically based music like EDM and things like that. And it's a like 95% of the time the five is in there. And it's a hard choice for a lot of people because if you really love music, you love both, right?
Right.
You like the part that makes you dance, which is usually the rhythm, and then you like the part that makes you feel something, which is usually the
Yeah.
lyrics, the emotionally driven part of the lyrics. But it's yeah, it's a curiosity of mine that
Mm-hmm.
I'm testing out, and I like to just ask people that before I start talking about all of this to get their unbiased kind of opinion. Some people really struggle, but other people are like, I don't care about the lyrics at all. I just want to dance. And that always perplexed me. I met someone years ago who said that at a festival I was at one time, and I was like the song got slower and they were singing something really heartfelt, and this woman, she just like walked away. I'm like, where are you going? I'm like, this
Mm.
is a great song. She's like, I don't like it. I'm like, why? She's like, oh, because I can't dance to it. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? She's like, yeah, I don't care about lyrics. I only want to dance. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Like, as a
Yeah.
person who sings music and sometimes writes it, I'm like, I'm writing these lyrics because they mean something and you don't care. But like through the lens of the chart and energetics, I'm like, okay, there are people who are like really, if they have the full 515 channel, it is a huge driver in their preference.
Mm.
And like, you know, having a little bit maybe not as strong individual circuitry might
Yeah.
also play a part in that. More tribal circuitry could also influence the rhythm piece.
Yeah.
um but then a whole other side to this too is I'm interviewing people who love music, and we talk about why they love the music they love, but
Right.
I'm also poking and prodding at people who are potent creators of music
Mm.
and what their process is, how songs come to them. This was something I also observed being in the local music scene and trying to write songs myself. I found that I got the most inspiration for writing songs when I was in the car.
Mm.
In the car.
Mhm. Yep.
Sometimes people say it's in the shower. sometimes there's other things, but whenever I was on a road trip, all of a sudden lyrics would just start coming out of me. And as the lyrics were coming out of me, I hear the tunes start to form. I've also written songs like as a collaborative thing where I have a friend who writes poetry, and she's like, you can use any of my poems to write a song with. I said, okay. And one day I flipped it open to a random page. I just started reading it, and I heard the music come through as I was reading the words. There are other people though who write songs. Some people write a song a day. They'll write 5 songs in a day just to like get the statistics. Like statistically, if I write 5 songs a day every day for a year, I'm going to have 20 really good songs.
Wow.
Then there's other people who like my husband is like this. He'll have more the sound of it in his head, and he'll get his guitar and he'll find like what's the chords, or he'll hear something really cool in another piece of music and he wants to utilize that chord formation, and he'll just start playing with the chords and then just start making sounds with his mouth, and then words come out, and that's how he writes a song, and that blows my mind. He's a self-projected projector.
Okay.
So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Does he have gate 62?
I don't think he has 62. I'd have to double check.
That's that well, one of the things that Raw always said was the gate 62 wants to put like they want to put words to something. They want to hear that, like they want to be in that frequency, but they want to be able to put words to what the pattern is. So they want to do that.
He doesn't have 62. He does have the 63.4 channel. He has the 11. So sometimes too, I'll see like if you have a hanging gate like the 11, it's reaching for the story to express the
Yes.
ideas. And
Yeah.
sometimes like, we can write from those undefined places.
For sure.
Like that's what we're looking for, and our energy's trying to put the words to it. He has the 44 as well, which I often look to as like a pattern recognition,
Yeah.
And he's gate 1 is his son.
There you go.
He's cross of defiance. He's very highly creatively motivated, but not in an like no ego. There's no ego there at all. It's just pure creation. It has been really interesting. We've been together for 6 years, and when we got together, he played guitar a little bit, like on the side, but he was working a job that was depleting him and all that stuff. And within pretty much a year of us being together, he left that job, started his own business. We started the flower farm together. He's acting like he's a Manny Gen. But a Manny Gen who knows how to rest. He rests a lot more than I do.
Good.
And he's much more like in tune with those like cycles, but it's really fascinating to me because I'm watching him running around like the way that I do, and I'm like,
right,
you're crazy.
Yeah. And how I see that is if there's clean, clear, yummy sacral energy available, take advantage of it. And just don't push yourself past into the exhaustion aspect, right?
Yeah, no, he's done really good at like he works seasonally during the spring, summer, and fall, and then he takes the winter off from he switched his career from digging pools to lawn mowing. So now he just sits on, he bought like a really nice 0-turn lawnmower, and he just drives. It's very low physical effort, and he just has to sit on the lawnmower and mow it around. But he's already talked about his dream of, he's like, I want to be the guy that does this.
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Like you over there and you over there. So he's building that for himself right now. And it's really, really fascinating to watch.
That's awesome.
But yeah, he pretty much takes the winters to play with all the house plants we have, and work with, play with our dog and pursue just the music more. He's been playing out by himself more and been getting a lot of recognition, which I really love. I've been encouraging him to play by himself more, because when we play together, people only see me for some reason. But lately, since he's been playing out more, he's been much more confident. And when we play gigs together now, he gets the compliments too. And when he's out by himself, he gets a lot of really good recognition. So it's cool.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's his profile lines?
He's a 5'1" as well.
Interesting.
Something that he's said to me even before we got into human design was, he's like, I feel like you're the only one who really sees me.
Mm.
And I feel very much the same about him. Like, we've stuck with each other. He's stuck with me through some pretty tumultuous emotional shit that I lay out there. That
Right.
has been unfair, really, like, because I was coming from a unaware, immature place,
Yeah.
and we've grown together in that. And I really learned how to communicate much better when I feel like what I need, and when I feel myself. With the 59-6, I feel it's a little I feel like it's fairly unique of a wave, because it's long. It takes a long time. It's very,
Yeah.
very subtle. And it
Mhm.
takes a long time. I've been tracking it for years now, and it
Yeah.
feels like I go through a full wave in about 9 months to a year. Like a full, like I'm up for a while, and then a slow descent. The slow descent takes 2 months, and then I'm down at the bottom of it for a month or so, and then it comes out. And it is 100% brought on by tribal disruptions.
Mm.
In 2021, I had a huge blowout with my mom,
Mm.
and it I being aware of this in my energetics, I was like, okay, I need to, like, really be very aware of, like, my energy and all this stuff. And nothing seemed to be happening. Like, I wasn't going into a low, but I think I was still in shock of it,
Mm.
everything that had happened. And then in the spring that year, it happened in the fall. In the spring the following year, I felt it. Like, I was looking at my calendar for the summer. I was picking events that I was going to do and things like this. And my intuition just said, like, clear June. You need June to do nothing. I'm like, but June's that's the month to be doing, like, lots of things outside on markets and, wellness fairs and stuff like that. And it was like, no. And I listened. I was like, okay.
Mm.
I was like, all right, I'm not going to do anything in June. I cleared June and even a little bit of July. And sure enough, and that was in March. And by April, I was like, oh, this is why. And I could feel just like this slow drop happening.
Mm.
And I was like,
Mm.
this is what it is. This is it right happened. This is happening in real time. This low is coming on. Still like chopping wood, carrying water,
Yep.
did what I had to do in life. But I was like, man, I am not putting anything that comes to me right now. I'm saying no. I'm going to say no if it's anything for June or July. If it's beyond that, I'll say, can I let you know in August? Because,
Right.
like, that really does, you have to lean into it when you've got this wave. And then in July, I got a couple readings from a few other practitioners. And the last reading I had really, we talked a lot about the wave, and he helped me
Mm.
understand. He was a projector, and he gave me some perspectives on it. Hadn't hit me yet. And that really helped. And then it was like, almost like overnight turnaround. And then all of a sudden I
Mm.
just felt the rise back up. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good now. And that helped me come back out of it. And then again, this past summer, same thing in March. I'm looking at my summer, and I'm like, okay, intuition. And sure enough, my intuition was like, you know what? Clear June for this year too, because you're gonna need it. And we had to put our dog down in June.
Um.
And it was not, I had a hard time. I had a really hard time, just energetically, like mentally,
Yeah.
intellectually. I knew what to do for myself. I did the things that I
Right.
needed to do. But yeah, it was really hard. And then like kind of started to pull out of it come July. And then we got married this year in September. So that
Mm.
was like a huge celebration and a lift.
Yep.
But my mom came back into the picture, proved
Mm.
to me she needed to stay out of the picture, like, I let her come to the wedding. But then I was like, okay, no, no, can't do that again. And I dipped again in October and November, and then kind of got back into, like, I leaned into that energy to get back into this podcast idea. And it really feel like there was like a specific day where all of a sudden I got a spark, and I think it was like a Pluto squared my sun or something like that. And
Mm.
I got this, like, just jump to my battery and
Yeah.
dove right back in 100%. And here I am. So, yeah.
And that, as a fellow carrier of the 29, I think it is so important for us to really make a decision on our commitments.
Absolutely.
So important. Like if we're not committed and we're half in, half out, we're just causing havoc for ourselves. If we're not full in, then we have to be full out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's understanding the nature of that. And here, the subtle piece underneath this, I would like to hear your take on this too, is reading about the 29 and that the 29 really operates in cycles of 7 with
Yep.
its commitments. How have you seen that play out? I'm curious.
So I don't know if it's in my commitments that I notice it, but I definitely notice cycles of 7. I notice that like when we bought our farm and we had 2 7-year cycles, and then we put a new house on this farm, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna be here. This commitment's another 7 years. I can feel that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and being in the abstract circuitry, I think cycles of 7 are just there in our cellular structure. I think they're built right into us naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the interesting piece it's been hard for me to balance as this Manny Gen that wants things to happen so much faster than they do is I've been cleaning houses for 6 years.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I've been really desperate to get out of it for the last 3. And but no, just knowing it's not time
Yes.
yet. It's not
Yep.
time yet. And then I read about the 7-year cycle a couple months ago in the 29. I was like, I was in that band for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm having my 6-year anniversary with my partner right now, but we just got married, so I'm not worried about that commitment recycling. But with the cleaning, I've been really working on building, my readings business and these other avenues of
Yeah.
income so that I can phase out that cleaning. And
Yeah.
I feel like this is it. I feel like this is my last year, but I'm trying to stay patient and stay with it and stay present. But
Right.
it's been this really interesting thing where clients have just been letting themselves go one at a
Mm-hmm.
time, very slowly. So like when I said I had my Thursdays opened up, I had a client who just was like, things are too crazy at my house right now. I have family staying and we're doing renovations, just don't, I can't have you clean for me here anymore. It's just too crazy.
Mm,
I was like, okay, that's a weird, usually like because it's crazy, you would want someone to
right.
come clean because you don't
Yeah.
have time to.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I'm not gonna fight it. I'm just gonna say, okay, that's fine. And we're on good terms. If she wants me back, I can go back. But also I'm not taking anything new either. And then
Right.
this opportunity to lead this singing group came in,
Yes.
and it's less physical effort and more using of my natural gifts. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Yep.
And it's just like holding the patience while observing it all happen, and
Yeah.
I'm my mind going crazy
Of
sometimes.
course.
Like, no, pull the plug, pull the plug, pull the plug,
Yeah. Yeah.
and also my physical body being like, yeah, pull the plug. Your arm hurts, your shoulder hurts, your back hurts. You need to stop. But also, I don't want to pull the plug before the cycle has had its
Yes.
completion,
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's very wild to be so observing this specific moment in my cycles, as
Yeah.
these things are kind of converging. And also, like, I've been a master of ripping things off like a band-aid.
Yeah.
I have burned a lot of freaking bridges. I have done a lot of ripping off of band-aids, and it comes really easily for me because I know that I always have me. So like even if I lose everything else I have me, and
Mm-hmm.
I've started
Mm-hmm.
from scratch so many times that it's just I know I can do it, but I don't want to do that
Yes.
anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm in this era of not like resisting the burning the bridge and really just patience is so hard. And that's also my gate 20. I have defined in my chart so many times. It's also my Chiron, and it's where my
Mm.
Uranus is going to be when it oppositions in 2 years. And I'm like, okay, patience, 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 patience.
Yeah.
and trusting myself and patience and trusting and patience. I'm like, but I want it now.
Yeah. And really that's where we're moving towards, is this whole aspect of patience. Abundance happens in patience. Abundance of that 55. The only way we feel abundance is when we're patient. The minute that we try to get really spontaneous, that's where things start to hit bad. And I think that's for all of humanity, whether you're defined emotionally or not, patience is so key for us. There's so much information in patience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something that even like someone who's sacral defined or splenic defined, I feel like just if you're not emotionally defined, it doesn't mean you shouldn't still wait. It means
That's
you're
right.
here to learn
Yeah.
about the
Yes.
value in the waiting.
Yeah.
We're here to show you, here's how you hold space for yourself while you wait.
Yeah.
Here's how you do it.
Exactly.
And then they're here to, when you're open there, you're here to like learn the wisdom of that. And so yeah, a lot of times when I'm reading for people, I'll be like, yeah, listen to your sacral response. And also you take just waiting 5 seconds. Just wait 5 seconds and do that check-in. Am I in a regulated nervous system state? Am I feeding off of the emotions of the person who's with me right now?
Yes.
All of these different things. I
Yeah.
always recommend like
So important.
take 5 minutes and go to the bathroom and check back in before you make that 100% commitment, because it's fine. You can still do it. And if it's not right, hopefully you'll learn from it. Like, one way or another, we're all here for the journey. But if you want to avoid, try to take a little bit of pain and suffering out, because I don't think we're here to suffer.
I don't think so either.
Like you can avoid a little bit of suffering that's self-inflicted by just, if you think you've waited long enough, wait 5 more minutes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that emotional regulation is it's so important, because as someone myself, I have an undefined emotional center, and it is, we live from that place of, oh, what's poking us now? Do you know what I mean? And reacting from that poke. So learning how to understand that poke is still going to be there, but there's so much wisdom inside of that poke. Just relax into it.
Yeah. The whole point of this system is not to use it as an excuse for bad behavior, but to understand, to recognize when you're in the shadow. Yeah. Oh, let me pause, and how do I transmute into the gift or the higher expression? What I love too is Brene Brown popped into my head. She's undefined in the solar plexus, but she wrote this whole book on defining emotions. Like, if you haven't read Atlas of the Heart, go read it or listen to it on Audible, because man, she's like creating the vocabulary that we were never taught, right?
Yeah.
Like, most people only know happy, sad, excited, like there's only a few emotions that a lot of people can actually put their finger on, until you get older. And even then, not everybody even does that work, right?
Yeah.
She literally did the research. She's an inspiration to me. She does research the way I'm doing the research for this music thing. Like, I'm just letting the things kind of come through in the conversations.
Yeah.
But I just love looking at her design and listening to her talk sometimes, because I'm like, man, this is what a freaking aligned person sounds like and looks like. Yeah, somebody truly living their design, and they had to walk the journey to figure it out. And now they're helping other people figure it out too, with their own system of making meaning. So I love it.
Yeah. And time, patience, time, age, all of it just gets better with time, doesn't it? I think so.
Oh, for sure. I use crock pots as an analogy for life all the time. My old crock pot died recently, and I put a post out on Facebook asking people, which do you prefer, a crock pot or an instant pot, and why? And I was just like, look, I already knew I wanted to get another crock pot, because that's just how I roll. But I wanted to hear, like, what are people's arguments and things. And as people were talking about it, I'm like, wait a second. My lifelong value has been, if it's instant, it probably has no nutritional value. It
Yeah.
probably has nothing good left in it.
Yeah.
Instant anything equals not good. So why would I even consider getting an Instant Pot? And I was researching. They cook food at such high temperatures.
Yeah.
It's like a microwave.
Yeah.
And I don't use microwaves. So I'm like, all right, back to the crock pot it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good analogy. Excellent analogy. All right, young lady. So as we wrap up here, is there anything that you would like to invite this audience into? You got your podcast, you do your readings. Are you looking for people for your podcast? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, I do have a website. It's sorely out of date. Please don't go there. Um, you can if you want. That was a long time ago. But I love Instagram. I love connecting with people on Instagram. You can send me a DM, follow me at Anna with Intention. That's my favorite right now. If you live in the upstate New York, central New York, Syracuse area, come find me at an event, a wellness fair. Sometimes I do workshops at local places, and I always announce those on my Instagram. And with the podcast, so I am definitely interested in interviewing people who are really passionate, like about a specific band or a specific artist or a specific lyricist, songwriter, musician, composer, whatever your thing is. You could be into Insane Clown Posse. You could be into Beethoven. I don't care. This is part of my research and experiment. So if you want to be part of the research, please reach out to me. I have a Google form that I usually send to people as kind of like an application before we schedule an interview. And also, if you are a creator of music, especially if you're into human design already, that just makes for a really great conversation like the one we had here today. So those get me really excited. I have a few people lined up to interview that are both human design people and also like really cool musicians or songwriters. So yeah, if that's you, absolutely reach out to me. You can DM me on Instagram or you can email me at annawithintention@gmail.com. And I think that's all I have for now. I do offer readings. I do subconscious reprogramming sessions. I call them quantum alignment sessions. All that sort of work. So if you're curious, I welcome you to start a conversation.
Awesome. Excellent. So is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with today? Just one little tidbit of wisdom of your experiment in human design as a 5/1 manifesting generator, emotionally defined. So just one piece of information that you would like to drop.
Be your own scientist.
Mm,
Like we call it an experiment for a reason. Track your stuff, write stuff down when it comes to you, like whatever you got to do on a notepad, in a note in your phone, a voice note, whatever it is. And keep track and experiment and play and don't take it so serious. Like be a mad scientist. Be your own mad scientist. That's my recommendation.
yeah, I appreciate that. As a 1/3, I totally appreciate that. I have papers everywhere. All right. Well, thank you very much, Anna. I really appreciate this. Music is not, as I say, I'm not musically inclined. I can barely turn on the radio, but I love to have conversations and be around those that just deeply have music entrenched in their bones. You guys are interesting, you're fun, you are deep people as well. So thank you very much for sharing your love of music and human design here with us today.
Thank you so much, Leann. This has been such a wonderful conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Till next time.